Good morning, folks, wherever you are out there. Welcome. You are listening to the Charge Live podcast. I'm Joseph Barletta, and this is where we discuss EVs and all things EV charging. So glad you could pull over and park with us today. Let's get plugged in. Hey, this episode's all about the Tesla Cybertruck PowerShare vehicle-to-home backup system, how it works, and everything you need to know. You're going to love this one. Today's special guest speaker is Mr. David Laderberg, Vice President of Smart Charge America. Thank you so much, David, for joining us. This is going to be a really good episode. Guys, my voice is shot. I have no idea why, but David here is going to be doing most of the talking as we progress into this kind of, so I guess you could call it an interview or, kind of a summary analysis of what we have experienced so far out in the field. So, David, we've installed Tesla PowerShare vehicle-to-home backup systems on a Cybertruck, on few Cybertruck installations. So let's start with, kind of describing to our audience exactly kind of how it works and I guess, how long we've been doing it. I guess our first install was January last month. So
yeah, we started working with the Tesla team though months ago. That's when we first started to, become aware of the hardware, what's required, starting to do some of the testing on it. Of course, we got the gateway, 3V gateway here, which is part of the hardware needed. And, we started to get that, several pallets of it. And we're based here out of Austin, Texas, and where the Tesla headquarters is. And we're really focused on where it's employees that have gone part of a pilot program that allows them to basically use their house as a kind of the guinea pig, so to speak, to, where we're installing in their home. So Tesla can bring an engineering vehicle over and test PowerShare, see how it works, different environments, different needs, different use cases, to try to find, make sure it's really well dialed in with the software. But it is definitely, it's kind of slow rollout beta, I guess, is the best based on our impression, at least. And so, but it's really cool to see. And, we have a lot more to go, and only until recently, in fact, from today is the first day that I've heard of a PowerShare hardware being installed at a non-Tesla employee's house. So good. Today's the day. It's most
likely California.
That's the shift.
Do you know if it's in California or Texas?
I don't know exactly where.
All right. Tell us, I guess, the whole PowerShare thing. Tell us, what all hardware specific do you need for this PowerShare feature to be enabled? I know you need the Cybertruck.
Do you need a Cybertruck? That is a big one.
What else do we need?
So you need what's called the 3V gateway and also universal wall connector. So this is the gateway, and this basically looks very much like the gateway that you have for a power wall, which is the Tesla's home battery system. So it's very similar. It's not the same though. It is different, but you do need that piece of hardware and also the universal wall connector. And, some people are asking, well, why do you need that? Well, there's actually a power wire and communication wire that goes in between the universal wall connector and this gateway. And they have to communicate. One, it gets power from that charger, so that in the event the grid goes out, your whole house loses power. But this gateway needs to retain electricity. It needs to be able to stay on, and it gets that from the charger, assuming the car is plugged in. So that's a piece of that puzzle that, like Ford and other guys are putting like a separate battery on the side of the home with it.
The home integration system.
Yeah.
Ford.
So that's, hey, it is what it is. But in this case, Tesla's really been focused on putting as much hardware as they can inside the vehicle.
Makes sense.
That's a lot about what I've seen from the design. But, you need that. It has to be installed by a certified electrician. There's no way around this. This is not... we've been doing this. We've been getting our hands on this product for a while. It is not something you can just try to put in yourself. There's a lot of ways to design this for installation. And if it's not done properly and sized properly, you're going to get bad results, basically. And then certainly you need to have someone that is, from a safety perspective, a licensed electrician. They know what they're doing. Electricity is not something you want to mess around with. It's one thing to do like drywall or plumbing or, certain things for your home. You could change like a toilet seat. Great. Maybe some pipes here and there. But, if this goes wrong, the cost is, well, it's your life. So that's where I definitely, it's one of those things. They're not going to be, from what I understand, handing out this hardware to customers. It's something that has to be done by a Tesla certified installer. Also, not only just because of the experience, knowledge, and certification and all the training that we have to go through to be a Tesla certified installer, but also the access to the software, commissioning, and activation that's necessary in order to properly configure this unit to work, given the type of installation that we're doing.
Gotcha. So if the regular Powerwall gateway is called just the gateway, what's the name of this gateway that's special that Tesla's referring to?
Yeah. So the typical gateway for a Powerwall is called the V2 gateway, the version 2 gateway. This is called a 3V gateway.
Why'd they switch it?
I don't know, but and actually I heard that there will be a V3 gateway maybe at some point, but that's different than
for
this.
Powerwall.
This is 3V, so it is very specific and intentional. I don't know why they called it that, but that is what it is, and it is.
Tell us a little bit about the distribution model. You spoke earlier about how Tesla's been sending us pallets of this stuff. Do you expect them to start selling this stuff in Home Depot, or what? Or what are your thoughts?
It's one of those things that the actual installation of it. It's something that you need to be able to offer to the Cybertruck owners. Is this isn't something they're mass producing beyond the numbers of Cybertrucks. We all know Cybertruck rollout is going kind of slow right now, and Cybertruck's the only vehicle that supports this today. So currently, it seems like it's a limited rollout, but they also have any Cybertruck owners filling out a survey, so they can say, hey, I have a home, yes or no, do you own it, and then get some information about it, see if it's even a fit for PowerShare. Because if it's not, technically, if you get a foundation series, it's this hardware is included with that, and depending on if you did Cyber Beast, even some installation cost is also covered by it. But that won't work for everyone. Maybe you're moving, or maybe your home just isn't compatible with it. Perhaps in that case, that Tesla's giving an alternative. I've heard supercharger miles is one offer that could change over time. I don't know, but ultimately, just to make sure the customer gets their money's worth with it, and other than that, that seems like the way to go, is just to keep it control of it, because they don't have a lot of these. They don't want just people holding on to them for a year, 2 years. Plus, it's getting better. It seems like all the time they're making improvements to this hardware. So I wouldn't get too caught up on the fact that, hey, Tesla won't send it to me. I bet by the time you get to the home that is going to work for PowerShare, and when the timing is right, you're going to want the latest, greatest piece of hardware at that time. I'm not saying wait, until better hardware. There's nothing there. Yeah, but I would want, if it were my home, to get whatever when I'm ready to get the hardware that's available at that time.
Okay, so every Cybertruck's going to have the hardware that's inside of it already. It's just whether or not it's kind of like the full self-driving, right? You still have the hardware. It's whether or not you choose to elect it in your purchasing of the Cybertruck, right?
Exactly.
And then, of course, you want to make sure that your home is compatible prior to maybe purchasing that, because if not, it's a wasted feature, right?
Yeah, it's just not. And then that's where Tesla has that alternative to offer you instead. So, you're whole on it.
So I recently read an article with regards to the installation. And I know Tesla's got something on their website where if you get the Cyber Beast and the Foundation Series, they'll pay $4,000, up to $4,000 for the installation part of it. And they also give you the gateway and all the materials, for free included inside that package. Tell us a little bit about, I guess, that. And then, of course, if you don't have the Cyber Beast Foundation, the 4,000, like what all it looks like, kind of average sales price for our audience members. This is extremely valuable. I'm sure everyone wants this. Everyone's been eyeing it. Everyone's been talking about it. This stuff's been on crazy news. So I want to know, kind of tell our audience a little bit about, maybe a price range of what you're seeing out there with all of the installations that we've so far done and have quoted and have approved and scheduled and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people are saying the $4,000 that Tesla is talking about for Cyber Beast owners is, well, that's what it costs, right? But the reality is it ranges. And I talked about this with Tesla, months ago when we first started to hear about it, and they wanted to talk to us and about pricing. What is that going to be? And based on the knowledge that they gave us at the time, we actually set up very specific pricing, that we pre-negotiated with Tesla. So it's predictable across all different types of installations. But at the same time, it's important to understand that it also involves a charger install. Yep. Just like any charger install, it could be right next to the panel, real simple, or it could be clear across the other side of the house, which is a lot more copper, a lot more labor, materials, and that increase the cost. So the actual gateway itself and this hardware to install is relatively it doesn't change that much. There's some variation in it, but it's really the charger circuit that has the largest range of variation. So I'm seeing anywhere from about 2,500 to 5,000 for total installation costs. Again, not including this hardware or anything, but as far as just what you'd pay Smart Charge America to go out and install it for you. And then again, that really has a lot to do with the charger cost installation. But we've only have a handful of ones that we've quoted so far, and it's going to probably change over time depending on all the applications and use case.
Gotcha. Tell me a little bit about the wire. You talked about there's a communication wire that has to be powered and stuff like so on. Tell me a little bit more about that particular wire and why it's so important. for this particular setup. And like, I guess the regular Gen 3 wall connector doesn't have that port on the back of it, and that's why
Yeah,
you
yeah.
need
So
the.
the Gen 3 wall connector, there's the standard
Mhm.
NACS or North American Charging Standard one, does not have that wire. I think it will eventually. Right now, it's the universal. It's the most recent release of the wall connector. So I think they're kind of in foresight of this product. They offered that with the 4 wires in it. So it's 2 for communication, and then 2, a ground and a 12-volt for powering the gateway. Which, if you look at it, that's what we already do if we're installing a V2 Powerwall or Powerwall
Makes
2
sense.
today. We have the exact same wires basically that we're putting in between the Powerwall battery and the V2 gateway in that case. So it's very similar, in that respect. In this case, it just has to be connected to the charger because the charger is connected to the car, and the car in this case is the power source rather than a Powerwall battery.
Gotcha. So let's take a look at this for our
Yeah.
audience members that are looking at this
This is heavy
stuff
glass
on
too, by
YouTube.
the way,
So
which is similar
yeah,
to
that's
the other
pretty heavy.
gateways.
That is really heavy. Okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about this. I guess you have your spaces there for your panel that's on the inside here. What's this box? What does this go to for?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is where the wires come in to supply from
Ah.
the actual power source. In this case, it'd be either the grid or a circuit coming from the main panel at the customer's home. And this is where, in the case where it is replacing the service equipment, meaning it's coming right from the utility meter directly into this box, we have to add a service disconnect here. And that's
Got
why
it.
it's a knockout. We have
Got
to
it.
put a 200 amp disconnect, 150,
So not for every
125.
scenario, but just for some.
Yeah,
Putting it on your
exactly.
layout. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. So you have your code right there. All of your other features, how much it works, the specs, stuff like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull this down. I want you guys to see the actual inside of the 3V gateway for the Tesla PowerShare. Now, those communication wires you were talking about, can you see inside here where they go, where they port into, or no?
Yeah, so currently they come out right here on this wiring harness and they go to
Okay.
these connectors that are built in. This is an example where I expect over time Tesla will have a kind of a more central spot for this to be, just a little more final touches to it. So again, I think this is reflective of where it is today with what's called the D build of this gateway. And
Mhm.
I have no doubt that it'll improve, but there's a lot of what Tesla's done with this gateway to make it easy for us installers to install this and have relatively little variables.
Yes.
Just make it
Thank you.
easier. Yeah, a lot. Just like this, the built-in panel board here, which what we'll do is this is where the circuits that will supply power to, like in this case, the wall connector specifically, will have the breaker inside here directly, which otherwise, previously we'd have to do a whole separate sub panel for that, which means a separate panel installation for that, circuits that have to be relocated, and then wire going from the sub panel over to the gateway as well, which is just a lot more time and materials. So ultimately, Tesla's done a lot that make it quicker and easier for us, but also lower cost to the consumer, which
Mhm.
is I'm all for. I want to get as many of these out there installed as possible, as quickly as possible, and at a reasonable price. That truly is what we're about. But we can't lose money, right? So some people
course.
complain like, hey, that's too much money. Well, sometimes it's the home and sometimes it's maybe people's expectations, but ultimately we really are wanting to keep this as low as possible. And Tesla's definitely focused on that with this design.
Hey man, look, friends of mine have gotten quotes for gas, natural gas backup generators, so forth and so on. $8,000 just for the unit, another 7 grand just for the installation. You're talking about $15,000. We're not talking. This is not cheap, but at the same time, price compared to another solution, this is a pretty comparable. This is comparable. This is good stuff.
Yeah, and
You know?
it's got the car. This is like the equivalent of like 10 Powerwall batteries, which is like $80,000 roughly. But yeah, the car is expensive, but in reality, if it provides 2 use cases that it could be very valuable for someone and potentially life saving, is I think potent. It's a great product.
So we can back up the whole home, or we can back up partial. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, exactly. So with the design training that we had to go through with
Mhm.
Tesla, we had some scenarios where there are certain appliances that could overload the PowerShare process. So that could be, a lot of cases, it's the AC system. So if the air conditioning unit has a certain amount of power it needs to pull to get started up, it's called locked rotor amps. Not really important why that's called that, but all it means is that if the AC is at a full stop and it cuts on, it's a large spike in power draw that is created when that occurs, and it puts a large strain on the gateway, and more notably is the vehicle itself. And it's limited on how much power that can be. In this case, it's 110 amps. So if you have a AC with a LRA rating, which is on the label on the AC unit of anything higher than 110, it would not be able to be covered by PowerShare specifically. So maybe
Got it.
if you had Powerwall in addition to PowerShare, which is an option,
Maybe.
right? That would be different. You'd be okay in that
Mhm.
scenario. But if your AC rating is more than 110, we would end up having to take it out of the backup loads, and so that would exclude that.
Okay. Okay. So home backup. I guess partial backup would be where you put the breakers in here. An entire home backup is where you put the charger and maybe a 125 amp breaker here. And now you go into a sub panel. It's got all the breakers for the home.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, that's where actually that's more of like the partial focus, which is so it might be
You
scenario
can touch it. It's
where
not plugged in. It's not
Yeah.
live. You can touch it. It's
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Do not
careful.
touch this.
Yes,
If you
do not. I like
That's-
don't
I
even
know.
like putting my hands
We're
in there.
trained for that.
Trained
Yes.
to not do that. So, but ultimately, partial backup means that there's certain circuits that we want to exclude in that case. So that's where we'd set up a sub panel that we'd then relocate some circuits from the existing main panel to kind of what we call the PowerShare panel,
Mhm,
or the load panel.
Right.
And that's what is the backup circuits are located. And then in the case of the full home backup, we'd actually set it up so we might put the charger breaker in here,
Mhm.
but then the terminals that are here would then be designed to supply to the main panel of the home.
Gotcha.
So we'd basically intercept where there's currently today you might have electric meter for utility, and then you have a separate main panel.
Mhm.
We're putting the gateway in between that for a full home
Do
backup.
you need a utility disconnect on that end? Where
Yes.
you need the permit,
Yep.
all of that stuff.
And that's one of those things that can lengthen the time that it takes for us to prepare for
Makes
that
sense.
install, because we have to pull that permit,
Mhm.
we have to get with the utility, we have to schedule them, and every utility is different. Sometimes it's maybe a day or two heads up. That utility can have someone out
I
there
love those.
pull the meter and turn power off,
Yeah.
so it's safe for us to do our job. And then we need inspections by the city to get things reconnected. In some cases, we have some municipalities or AHJs, authority having jurisdictions, that will tell even put us out many months. And really, a lot of that has to do with the utility, though. It just kind of put it where it's due. That could be 6 months, 9 months in some cases. So it varies wildly. Where someone maybe even the neighborhood over gets it done in a couple days, you might be stuck waiting months if you
Right.
want a full home
Right.
backup. But we don't have to configure it in that way. So that's where if I were getting a Cybertruck and I'm thinking, hey, I really want this PowerShare,
Yeah.
start to think about, not knowing yet, but if there were some circuits you were needing to exclude from the backup,
Which ones of those would be?
which ones would
Gotcha.
those be? Right.
Yeah, we talked about this when it hits the fan, and your home's without power. Especially if you have Tesla Powerwalls, you're basically trying to bring down your load as much as possible, so that way you can stretch the energy that's in those Powerwalls out as much as possible, right? So I would imagine it'd be the same thing with this. Just because you got it hooked up to a 123 kilowatt hour, battery pack with the Cybertruck doesn't mean that you're just gonna rock and roll and not and live like normal. You're gonna start cutting your consumption down in the house and start making sacrifices, so forth and so on. So the partial setup just does all that for you, right? But the whole home backup, you have to really be careful, I guess, when it does hit the fan and everything engages. It's you're bringing down that power draw, so therefore you're able to stretch the amount of hours that
It's funny, like when you're planning this, I want everything covered,
right?
But then when it happens, you'd be like, whoa, hold on a
I
sec.
don't need this.
I don't want this. I don't want that. And you want to prolong
that
it.
precious energy that you have.
Yeah, I mean, it's finite, and you
That's
know
right.
what? Sometimes you don't know what's pulling the power, and the app will show you, and the phone is what the design will be, and what it is certainly today with Powerwall. And then if you want to lower your load, sometimes you might be out by that panel, your electric panel, and turning breakers off to make sure that it's not using that precious power.
Roger that. Hey, folks, you heard it right then and there. Go ahead and click thumbs up icon if you can. Just a little reminder there, So anyway, we love you. We'll go to the next one. All right. So how long does it take for a PowerShare to take over in the event of grid failure? I know that Tesla's released with us some training with regards to like 3 different scenarios. Walk the audience through, because we've been hearing a lot about that it's not as seamless as the power walls. Well, it wouldn't be, because it's not a fixed stationary storage system, embedded into your stuff. So there is switches and stuff like that has to go. But tell us a little bit about that, and why our audience should not be worried with it when it comes to like the timing of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple scenarios. One of it just might be that the power goes out, but the vehicle is not plugged in to the wall connector. Therefore, there's just no way for that, to cut over quickly or automatically by any means. You're going to be without power. You need to realize it. Go outside, plug in the truck. Then it takes about 45 seconds or so for it to initialize with the vehicle, connect, realize that, hey, the grid's out, and then to finally start dispensing power to the home to cover the loads. Right. So that's about the worst case scenario, assuming the truck's there and it has at least 20% state of charge.
Okay.
Right. Because it's not going to let it go below 20, which is kind of one of those things they built into it just in case. So that's what that black start, so to speak, scenario, because again, once you plug in that car to the car, it's got to provide power to the gateway. The gateway kind of boots up and sees the scenario and then communicates about 45 seconds or so. Worst case, is what they tell us right now. And I'm seeing these numbers improve, by the way. So as of this recording, they're telling us about 45 seconds. And then you have a situation where the outage occurs and maybe your vehicle is plugged in, but with the vehicle might, actually be in sleep mode. So that means that it's in a situation where everything's powered off. It's kind of maybe like 1 a.m. and the vehicle is not expecting by any means that it's going to be used at that point. So it kind of goes into just a little more of a hibernate sleep mode. So it takes a little bit more time for it to wake up in the event of that grid failure and say, okay, hey, I'm ready. Let's get power dispensing to this home. That's about 10 to 20 seconds is what they're telling us.
Does that happen every night or like when you don't use the car for like over the weekend or something?
Yeah, it's I think they're changing the software all the time, but ultimately it's a situation where if Sentry mode is off, right? Because if Sentry mode's on, it's kind of awake, in a certain respect. But if you have that turned off and it's a time where you're not normally driving, it goes into that sleep mode. And so that's one of those things that we've been seeing. But then we have a scenario with if the vehicle is awake and it is, turned on, it's connected, so anytime if you have a Tesla today and you turn on the Tesla app,
Cybertruck.
Yeah, of course. And, it has to wake up the vehicle sometimes. But in this case, the vehicle's already awake. You notice that app, refreshes.
I literally just
quick.
went to my app this morning. I have an old Model S 2014 and it wasn't waking up. Because I have my key fob somewhere else, and I went out and I was trying to unlock the car, and that damn thing wouldn't wake up. All the other vehicles woke up. No, it's just older. It is what it is.
Yeah, they just got a lot better at it. But even in that case, if the vehicle is awake, you're looking about 3 to 20 seconds. What they're telling us.
Fast.
So, but this is important to note. No, it's not a seamless failover from grid power to PowerShare power in the event of that failure, right? And nor is it designed to be, nor really, I'd say, do you want it to be? You want to have that disconnect because in this way, it's not grid interactive. It's not touching the grid, which is really key because that makes it a lot easier for us to get permits, makes it easier for us to explain to the utility that this is effectively the same as like a gas backup generator, which they don't cut on and take over instantly. They're not designed to do that. So they're not grid interactive. They don't just speak to the grid in any way. They don't dispense power to the grid ever. They're completely designed to be separate 100% from the grid. Even if the grid cuts back on, it keeps it completely disconnected from the grid until it transitions back and turns the generator off, lose power, and then go back to the grid. So it actually makes it a lot easier for us. And, I think it'll ultimately help make it keep the cost lower, permitting timelines, not having to interact with the utility, whereas we would have to do that for Powerwall.
So cost-wise, every time I talk to someone, how much does this cost? So wall connector, universal wall connector, how much?
It's $595.
Okay. We know the V2 gateway for Powerwalls, how much?
$1,000.
Okay. We know how much the Powerwalls cost.
It's about $8,000. Yeah.
Yes. This 3V gateway, do we have any idea on the cost of this so far?
I don't know yet. I mean, I think it'll be more than a V2. I think for sure. I mean, some people are saying upwards of $1,800.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right. And so, but that makes sense. I mean, this thing's a lot bigger than a V2 gateway. It's a lot heavier. This is 66 pounds. And that's because it's got this big neutral balancing transformer up here. And you can't see from this angle, but there's a lot of copper windings inside of here. So obviously a lot more work. Anytime you have a transformer involved with a product, it's going to increase the cost. This is pretty sizable one, and it is responsible for a majority of the heft, so it's very top heavy, right? And so it's all up here at the top, and that's what
on the back end.
Yeah, because normally if you have a home, you have 3 wires coming from the grid. There's line 1, line 2, and the neutral. In this case, the car, any wall connector, in this case, it only has line 1 and line 2 going to it. So that means it only has line 1 and line 2 coming out of it. That's how it's designed. There is no level 2 charger that has a neutral connected to it. That doesn't exist.
That's right.
So in this case, you still have to have a neutral, though, obviously for the home, to be able to provide power. So how does it do that? That's what it does with this neutral balancing transformer. That's what provides the neutral in this case, has it safely bonded between ground and neutral as well inside this. And that's what ultimately makes things work, where I see it with other solutions out there. They kind of have ways of getting around this or adjusting this. In some cases, they do that conversion inside or outside the vehicle instead. So that's got the neutral creation on that side. But ultimately, it's necessary. And, this is just how Tesla does it. And I expect that does increase the cost.
Gotcha. And I will tell you guys that we did post a few time-lapse videos of some PowerShare installations we did last month, and of course this month, and we're currently still doing a lot. We have a lot in the pipeline to get done. Quick question just came in. If your power is out and your wall connector is not plugged into your Cybertruck, you go out to the garage and you plug it in. How do you plug it in? Because the power wall is dead, and will the button release the charging port, or do you have to unlock the charging port and then sleeve it in, and then it uses a communication 12 volt, but Cybertruck is a 48 volt.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What's going on?
Because if you have a Tesla connector today, and you go up to your car, you just push this little button there, and that opens the charge port door.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
In this case, that wall connector will not have
That's right.
power. So no, this button will not work. So you will have to go inside the car or go inside the mobile app and just open up the charge door, which totally fine. And in most cases, we'll see you just tap on the actual door and it'll open up anyway. So as long as the car's unlocked, and then you would plug in at that point.
Okay, so what if you already have a Tesla Powerwall with a gateway? Do you need this, or talk a little bit about that?
So if your home is equipped with any generation of Tesla Powerwall or any version of the wall connector, you are good to go. It will operate. Just plug it in and you're good to go. It will interact with those systems. By the way, this is not today as of this recording, but the software will come out eventually that allow it to, during an outage, the vehicle will intelligently share power with the Powerwall system. So it's not going to interact with the grid or anything, but it'll basically increase the power output and duration of the backup scenario. So it's a huge supplement. So maybe if you have one Powerwall or Powerwall Plus or Powerwall 3 in your home already, and you have a wall connector, Gen 3, even the NACS or the Tesla specific connector like we show you right here, you're good to go. You don't need any other communication wire. You don't need to add this gateway. You don't need any of that. You don't need a universal wall connector. I have Powerwalls in my house, and I have a Gen 2 wall connector prior to this release of this unit, and I'm told it'll work just fine. I just need a Cybertruck. I don't have that yet. Yeah. That's all I'm missing.
Okay, that's interesting with the V2 wall connectors. It still works with that. Wow. Okay.
And what's really exciting is that looking at some of the documentation, what I'm hearing from Tesla is that this PowerShare capability is something that's going to be available on all Tesla vehicles, all new Tesla vehicles in the next 2 years, right? So that time frame might change a little here and there, but it's so great to see that you can use this battery that has a computer on it, on wheels, in so many different ways. Now it's a whole new way you can utilize that, which is extremely powerful. And it certainly, I think, makes it a more potent product than compared to the other electric cars out there.
Gotcha. So Tesla's designing this not only for themselves, but also for the rest of the industry. And you can see that with the NACS adoption as they slowly roll that out to the manufacturers, right?
Yeah. I mean, that means
Ford,
that,
GM.
If you're Ford, you get for your F-150 in 2025, that has this Tesla, NACS or J3400 connector on it, which it will. That's at least what Ford is committed to.
Mm-hmm.
That, there's no reason that Ford wouldn't then be able to have this compatible with this 3V gateway. So that's what Tesla is designing this for.
Gotcha.
They want it to be interoperable. They want other vehicles that have decided to go with NACS to be able to utilize this as well, which is amazing. They really didn't have to do that. They got a bunch of people on board with it. I'm guessing maybe those conversations that happened, in the past that talked about, hey, Ford, you want to come over to our connector? Oh, by the way, we'll also allow you to do this too. I'm guessing that was part of the conversation as well. And Tesla has figured out the hard part. They figured out all the design, the engineering, the software, and just the industry standards and everything. That makes it infinitely easier for Ford or GM, these other guys, to get doing vehicle to home capabilities out of the box. And Tesla's made that easy, which is phenomenal.
Now, speaking of Tesla themselves, there's a pamphlet that we have during our training, and it specifically said Tesla PowerShare available for Cybertruck only. for now, or do you expect Tesla somehow? This is not an investment device or advice, or what do they call them? The disclaimers. This is
Yeah,
not.
it's
We
not
don't know
investment
anything. We're
advice.
just hypothetical speculation. Do you anticipate Tesla possibly rolling this out with some of their I guess more expensive but less volume models, or what do you think this is rollout wise? It can't only subside inside the Cybertruck, but maybe it does. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no doubt that all Tesla vehicles are going to have it. And it is additional hardware though, and it is probably hefty, is what I expect. But I don't know exactly the specs on that, but it is something they'll need to engineer and design. And I expect that as over the next 2 years or so, as they do refreshes of these models already, which they constantly do, they're constantly improving hardware, that this will be part of it. And I'm sure Cybertruck is really the focus right now. Get that working, get that solid. Because again, any of these ones that we're installing and have been installing, you can't plug it into a Cybertruck and it instantly start working, right? They're still working on the firmware and software for the vehicle.
Right.
Same thing for this actual unit itself, as well as the wall connector. So that's a key part of that as well.
Yeah, we got some footage that we're going to show you guys here within the next week or two. You'll see some green indicator lights letting you know, hey, everything's good on the installer side. Customers got to register and get their stuff in. We'll also have power indicators that are inside here that lets our team know if there's power that's connected to it, so they can kind of start doing their commissioning and all of that good stuff. But tell me why. I guess if you don't have Powerwall and you don't have a Cybertruck yet, why would you get, if you do get a Cybertruck? I hear people like, well, I wouldn't get Powerwalls. So why would you get some Powerwalls in addition to a PowerShare setup? What are the benefits there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of benefits. I mean, it's certainly the first thing is that it's a seamless transition to and from the grid, right? I mean, I Powerwall, I've had multiple outages, and every time it is, sure enough, I have no idea that the grid went out. Literally oblivious until like a neighbor put, Facebook page, pops up with, hey, has everyone else lost power? Or is it just me? And then, or someone calls us and we're just humming along, internet's working, lights are on, AC, heat, whatever is all operational. So that's something that the PowerShare is not going to give you, nor do I expect it to give you. Of course, mark my words, right? That might be otherwise, but as of today, that's huge. And then also, the people that are thinking about getting solar, the PowerShare is not designed to interact with solar, meaning that if the grid goes out and you have solar panels too, that solar production isn't going to be stored in your truck while it's providing power to your home.
That's big.
So that's what Powerwall does, which is, in the event of an extended outage, multiple days maybe.
That's it.
Excuse me. The solar will supplement the batteries, which is huge. So that's not going to happen with PowerShare because it doesn't interact. It's not grid forming, right? So it can't interact. So basically, your inverters on your solar, if you have solar today and no Powerwall, and you have PowerShare, it will basically cease producing solar in the event of a grid failure.
All right. And tell us on the other hand, with the AHJs, which you said meant AHJ. What was
authority having jurisdiction? So this is where it's, we're seeing these inspectors in cities kind of wake up to, oh, these are batteries and being installed in people's homes. And they're not just a laptop battery. It's a big battery, right? And so there are concerns on fire departments too that are, certainly not invalid concerns, but sometimes a little, what I find, misguided maybe, or misunderstanding of the technology and how it works and how safe it is. And they, in the name of being safe for everyone, which I totally agree with, and I love that aspect. They put kind of some little bit of what, at least from our perspective, is red tape, and it slows us down. And I have to provide additional information, and I have to get a permit from the city, town, or state, and then I have to put in a separate permit with the fire department. I'm talking with a fire marshal. So much more than I ever thought I'd ever have to speak with a fire marshal these days, and it's all just to get someone's home battery working. And so that's been a little bit of challenging, but a lot of that has to do with Powerwall being grid interactive, right? So we're getting interconnection agreement with utility, but even more importantly, it's a battery that's connected to the home. Right. So that's the concern. Is it near maybe points of egress in the event of home fire, which may or may not be related, in this case, maybe not related at all to the Powerwall. But if that house is on fire, then that Powerwall can technically catch on fire. It's connected to it. Right. So do you want that near your window or door that you're going to use to escape your home? How close can that be safely? And so there's questions and things like that that are, in some cases, some homes that makes that hard. They'll have a lot of beautiful windows in it. I don't know, so all of a sudden those windows are impeding our ability to install these power walls, which is a little frustrating for some customers, frustrating for us because we want it to work. And that those are the types of things we're seeing. But what the great part about PowerShare is it's on wheels. It's not connected to that home. So, horrible situation. If there's a fire, you can pull that vehicle out of that, out of that garage. So it's not affected by it, or at the very least, it's not combusting because of, the house around it is on fire. So that's a great part about it. And ultimately, I think it's going to make it a lot smoother in the future for us to install it and to make it easier, lower cost for our customers to get it installed.
Yeah, FYI, the electric vehicle is 30 times less likely to catch fire.
Yeah, not only catch fire, but cause any issues.
I think like on some points it's like 100 times less likely. But anyway, we'll go from there. So it sounds like from what we're seeing, Tesla still have a little bit of work to do with regards to on the software side of things before everything gets active and all of that stuff. So if you're a Cybertruck owner and we've installed your gateway and your wall connector, universal wall connector, when's the appropriate time frame that you think Tesla will be able to kind of get this running for that particular customer?
Currently, what I hear is the only vehicles and situations that are having this functionality actually working and functioning today are Tesla's own engineering vehicles. So again, we're installing this a lot of Tesla owners or Tesla employees' homes rather, and it's for the purpose of testing, not because that Tesla employee is a Cybertruck owner, but because they've offered their house as a way to test it, and then they're using the engineering vehicle supplied by Tesla corporate to then you do the testing. These vehicles have specific software on them designed to start testing this out in the wild, which is great. That's just, they're really getting ahead of it and getting these out in the field as many different situations as possible, figure out what works, what doesn't work, what is a good user experience, what is not a good user experience. And I think they're really going to vet that and get that nice and solid. So it's very smooth for, new Cybertruck owners to get it. So, and even Tesla employees that got a Cybertruck, we're installing for some of them as well. Mm-hmm. They're not getting it right away. They're not updating their vehicle to test software to do it, from what I understand currently today. But I expect that will change over time, and they're still dialing it in at this moment.
Gotcha. All right. Anything else you have for our audience members that you want to share?
Yeah, I'm just really excited about this. I see so many huge benefits of it. I think it's, a really great piece of hardware. I'm really excited about this being available on other manufacturers' cars, where Ford or Kia or Mercedes or VW even, now they're going to have that NACS connector or the Tesla connector, but, even better, universal wall connector works with, well, what do you hear? J1772, which is, not Tesla's standard.
J3400.
Right? Yeah, J3400, baby. Yeah. So there's just so many great things that this does for people. And it also kind of democratizes energy in a bit, where not only can I power my home, but I can now move that power where I need it. Maybe I'm going over to my in-laws' house with my kids because I can't be where I am. Now I can take my energy that I have in my Cybertruck and go give it to that home because they need help. They need a situation where, they need assistance. And now we can safely go over there, bring our energy that we have stored in our, massive battery and safely, dispense that to that home. So that's extremely powerful. And you know what? It could be life-saving in a lot of situations where people really need that. And I'm excited about it, the stories like that coming out when that occurs, and then just, making it easy for people to, again, be in control of their energy destiny, whether the grid's there or not there. Be safety for their home and their family, maybe their neighbors as well. And just, it's a great product. I'm really excited.
I like it. Giving the power to consume back to the consumer, I guess you can call it. Mm-hmm. So awesome. Look, guys, thank you so much to our audience members, subscribers for your time today. I hope this episode's brought a little bit more value to your day. I know we're all better for it. Look, I love you guys. Yes, thank you so much. We can't do this without you. So please go ahead and click that thumbs up icon, comment, like, subscribe to our channel if you think we earned it. And, I guess thanks again for charging up with us, here again today. Keep in mind, you can always find us at smartchargeamerica.com. And remember, folks, if you can't charge, you can't drive. We'll see you next time. Cheers.